Do you remember those unsettling moments in kids' movies that stuck with us growing up and honestly still kind of freak me out as an adult? You know, the scenes where you're watching what's supposed to be a fun family film and suddenly you're like, wait, is this really for kids? Yeah, I'm talking about those moments when the tone shifts so hard. It feels like the filmmakers forgot who their audience was. So today, let's take a look at some of the most disturbing scenes in kids' movies, the ones that probably gave you nightmares and still live rent-free in your head. Let's kick things off with Monster House from 2006. The whole premise of this animated film is already pretty dark. A house that's literally alive and eats people. But there's one scene that takes this movie from spooky fun to, wait, this is actually disturbing. I'm talking about the basement scene where our young heroes discover the horrifying truth about Constance, Nebuchadnezzar's wife. The setup feels like something out of a scary movie. 3 kids head down into a dark basement with only flashlights. The beams cut through the shadows, revealing something strange beneath the house. As they go deeper, they find what looks like a cage, and inside it, a cement structure that looks like a tomb, built right into the foundation. When they finally discover Constance's body, it's super creepy. That scene really scared me the first time I saw it. But then comes the moment that likely haunted many childhood nightmares. DJ accidentally trips and breaks part of the cement structure, revealing a human skeleton. Not just any skeleton, the remains of Constance, Nebuchadnezzar's wife, buried in the house's foundation for decades. Let me emphasize this for a second. This PG-rated children's movie literally shows kids discovering human remains. They don't cut away, they don't hold back. We see the skull and bones tumbling out of their concrete prison, and the kids reacting in absolute horror. The visual is shocking enough, but the implications are even more disturbing. This isn't just some random skeleton. It's specifically revealed to be Nebuchadnezzar's wife. The kids and the audience are left to process the realization that the old man they've been scared of has been keeping his wife's dead body sealed within the foundation of their home. The scene is shot using the same techniques you'd expect in an adult horror film. Dim lighting, sudden reveals, and terrified reactions. When that skeleton comes tumbling out, it's a genuine jump scare moment that doesn't feel out of place. What makes this scene especially disturbing for a kid's movie is how it confronts children with concepts most parents try to shield them from: death, corpses, and grief. I remember watching this scene and being genuinely shocked that they went full-on horror in a movie that was marketed as a fun Halloween film for kids. It crosses a line that most children's entertainment carefully avoids, showing the physical reality of death in such an explicit and unsettling way. It's amazingly effective filmmaking, but I can only imagine the number of kids who needed their nightlights after watching this one, and how many parents had to answer questions about skeletons and death they weren't remotely prepared for after what seemed like a simple animated movie night. Speaking of nightmares, let's talk about Coraline, specifically the scene where the other mother asks Coraline to sew buttons over her eyes. Now, let me get this out of the way. Coraline is a masterpiece. It's visually stunning, brilliantly written, and one of the best examples of how animation can tell complex, mature stories. But holy crap, is it terrifying. This scene comes at a pivotal moment. After luring Coraline into the seemingly perfect other world, the other mother finally reveals her true intentions. She presents Coraline with a small box containing a needle, thread, and 2 black buttons. Then she tells Coraline that if she wants to stay in this perfect world forever, all she has to do is remove her eyes and sew buttons in their place. Just let that sink in for a moment. This children's movie is asking its young audience to contemplate permanent self-mutilation. What makes this scene so disturbing isn't just the concept, it's the execution. It's the slow reveal of the other mother's true nature and the casual, almost loving way she delivers this horrific proposal, like she's offering Coraline a treat rather than asking her to gouge out her own eyes. And the buttons themselves, buttons for eyes, are already an uncanny image, something straight out of a horror movie. Lifeless, empty black discs where windows to the soul should be. They're the perfect visual metaphor for the hollow, soulless nature of the other mother's false love. This scene works on multiple levels. For kids, it's straightforwardly scary. The moment when the seemingly perfect other mother reveals her true monstrous nature. But for adults, it's a metaphor for predatory behavior. The classic grooming tactic of offering a child everything they want, only to spring the horrific price once they're emotionally invested. I'm pretty sure a lot of kids will be scared by this disturbing scene and remember it for a long time. And honestly, I get it. I was a teen when I first saw Coraline, and that scene still gives me the creeps. Let's shift gears and talk about a scene that's disturbing in a completely different way. The infamous chocolate cake scene from Matilda. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bruce Bogtrotter, a student at Cruncham Hall, is publicly accused by the terrifying principal, Miss Trunchbull, of stealing a slice of her personal chocolate cake. As punishment, she forces him to eat an entire massive cake in front of the whole school. Now, I know this might not sound as immediately disturbing as the other scenes we've discussed. I mean, it's cake and kids love cake. But this moment is profoundly unsettling because of how realistic the cruelty feels. What makes it so effective is how director Danny DeVito stages it like a torture scene. The entire school is forced to watch this public humiliation. The cake, which should be a treat, becomes an instrument of punishment. And to make matters worse, Miss Trunchbull is confident Bruce will give up, which only adds to his embarrassment. The camera work, the tension in the room, the close-ups of Bruce's increasingly nauseated face, it's all crafted to make us feel his discomfort and Trunchbull's sadism. As he struggles to keep eating, the scene becomes harder and harder to watch. What's truly disturbing isn't just the event itself, but what it represents. An authority figure abusing her power to psychologically torture a child over a minor offense. Trunchbull isn't a fantasy monster. She embodies a very real fear many children have, adults who use their power to harm rather than protect. Yes, Bruce does finish the cake in the end, and the other students cheer him on for standing up to Miss Trunchbull. But that doesn't make the scene any less upsetting. Watching a child being forced to eat until he feels sick just to be punished is deeply disturbing. It's essentially child abuse carried out in front of other kids. The scene brilliantly captures what makes Roald Dahl's work so enduring. He wasn't afraid to remind children that the world can be cruel, but also that cruelty can be survived and even defeated. Still, for many kids watching, this scene may be their first exposure to the idea that adults can be deliberately, calculatedly cruel to children. A disturbing realization at any age. Now, if you haven't seen The Adventures of Mark Twain, especially the scene I'm about to describe, prepare yourself, because this might be the most philosophically disturbing moment ever included in children's entertainment. This 1985 claymation film follows Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, and Becky Thatcher as they stow away on Mark Twain's airship. During their journey, they encounter various characters from Twain's works, including Satan from The Mysterious Stranger. The scene begins innocently enough. The children enter a dark void where they meet a strange figure wearing a morphing mask. This being introduces himself as an angel, and then more specifically as Satan.
Sorry name for an angel.
In a calm and hypnotic voice. But this isn't the typical pitchfork-wielding devil from a child's imagination. This is an existential horror who calmly explains the meaninglessness of human existence. Satan creates a miniature clay world populated by tiny clay people, interacts with them briefly, and then casually destroys them, stating,
"I can do no wrong, for I do not know what it is."
The philosophical weight of this scene is staggering. Satan essentially introduces children, both the characters and the audience, to nihilism, the concept that life may be ultimately meaningless. He suggests that right and wrong depend on perspective, and that human existence is fragile and insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe. The visual presentation is just as disturbing as the themes. The animation is purposefully uncanny. Satan's mask changes expressions in unnatural ways, which looks both really cool and really creepy, in my opinion. The void setting creates a sense of cosmic isolation, and the destruction of the clay people is portrayed with a casualness that makes it all the more horrifying. What elevates this scene from merely scary to truly disturbing is that it doesn't rely on typical childhood fears. It's not about monsters under the bed or being chased. It's about questioning the very foundations of meaning and morality. It introduces concepts that many adults struggle with, all within a movie marketed toward kids. I distinctly remember seeing clips of this scene years before watching the full film and being utterly mesmerized by how boldly it presented such dark philosophical ideas. It's brilliant, artistic, and thought-provoking, but it's also undeniably disturbing for its intended audience. The scene ends with the children running away in terror, which honestly feels like the only appropriate reaction. It's one of the most disturbing yet fascinating scenes I've ever seen in a kids' movie. Let's go back to a classic now, Disney's Pinocchio from 1940, specifically the Pleasure Island sequence. This scene proves that scaring kids with disturbing content isn't just a modern trend. It's practically a tradition dating back to animation's earliest days. Pleasure Island is presented as a lawless paradise for boys, a place where they can smoke, drink, fight, break things, and do all sorts of bad stuff without getting in trouble. Sounds like a typical rebellious child's fantasy, right? But there's a horrifying twist. This consequence-free paradise is a trap. The boys who take part in all the bad stuff start turning into donkeys and are sold to work as slaves. Think about that for a second. This Disney movie is showing kids being tricked by a creepy man, told to do bad things, and then being turned into animals as a punishment for it. The transformation scene is truly scary. We see Lampwick, Pinocchio's friend, start to change. It begins when he grows donkey ears, and he doesn't even notice until Pinocchio points them out. He gets scared right away. Then comes the tail, the fur, and finally, in the most disturbing moment, he loses his ability to speak. Instead, he can only bray like a donkey while begging his mother for help. His final moments as a human are spent in terror, pleading for help that never comes. Then he fully transforms into a donkey and starts wrecking the room in panic. The lighting, the shadows on the wall, Lampwick's increasing desperation, it's staged like a werewolf transformation from a horror film. And Pinocchio's terror, as he discovers his own donkey ears and tail beginning to grow, makes the scene even more unsettling and scary. What makes this scene really upsetting is the message it sends. It feels like a strict lesson saying that bad behavior deserves extreme punishment. These children aren't just being taught a lesson. They're being permanently transformed and sold into slavery. The punishment is way too extreme for the crime of being rebellious boys. There's also something profoundly unsettling about the coachman who profits from this scheme. He looks downright scary as he says,
"They never come back as boys."
He's essentially trafficking children, a concept that's horrifying in any context, but especially in a children's film from 1940. One of the scariest things about this scene is that the movie never shows what happens to the boys who turn into donkeys on Pleasure Island, which makes the whole story feel even sadder and scarier. Finally, let's talk about the nightmare-inducing unmasking scene from Roald Dahl's The Witches. If you've seen this film, you know exactly which scene I mean, and you probably still have flashbacks about it. If you haven't seen it, here's what happened. Our young protagonist, Luke, is hiding in a convention hall where a group of ordinary-looking women have gathered for what appears to be a simple meeting. But Luke knows the truth. These are witches, disguised as regular women, gathered for their annual convention under the leadership of the Grand High Witch. What follows is one of the most effective body horror sequences ever included in a children's film. The Grand High Witch, played brilliantly by Angelica Houston, begins by ordering the other witches to remove their shoes and then their wigs. But the true horror begins when she grabs her own face and pulls it off, revealing the terrifying monster hiding underneath. The prosthetic work here is phenomenal and utterly terrifying. Her real face looks like something out of a nightmare, with a long, bumpy nose, deep, dark eyes, rotten teeth, and saggy skin covered in disgusting bumps. The whole transformation is shown in a very detailed way, without any quick cuts to make it less scary. After that, all the other witches follow suit, removing their human disguises to reveal their true forms underneath. They don't have the same amazing practical effects as the Grand High Witch. Most of them are just bald with some skin issues, probably due to budget constraints, but they still look hideous enough. As if that weren't traumatizing enough, what comes next is even worse. The witches suddenly become aware of Luke's presence. They scream and chase after him with claws out. Luke runs for his life through the hotel while the witches try to catch him. This chase scene absolutely terrified me when I was a kid. What makes this scene so deeply disturbing for children is how it plays on a very real childhood fear that adults aren't always what they appear to be. It taps into that anxiety that the safe, ordinary world might be hiding something monstrous just beneath the surface. The unmasking scene is made even more effective by how different it is from the rest of the film. At first, the movie feels like a fun, dark fantasy, but this scene suddenly shifts into pure, unfiltered horror, with no punches pulled, even for a young audience. This scene was clearly meant to be scary, and it succeeds brilliantly. So there you have it, some of the most genuinely disturbing scenes from kids' movies that probably haunted your childhood. What do you think? Which of these scenes terrified you the most as a kid? Are there any other disturbing moments from children's movies that stuck with you? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.